Hey guys, it's the Stick Figure Historian again, and you guessed it, we're still working on the England series. Hopefully I'm not boring you with this story of King Charles, because there's quite a lot more episodes coming out about him. I'll try to keep it interesting. Anyway, you remember from the picture here that Charles was hiding from all the riots going on in London. And instead of staying and trying to work things out, Charles decided to run away. Perhaps we can't blame him as a coward. It's hard to know what things were really like in those faraway times. It's possible that matters had simply gone too far to be settled with words anymore. We cannot, however, use the excuse that the king was just trying to protect his family, because this would be a faulty assumption when we look at how he fled. He took the queen with him, yes, and his two eldest sons, Charles and James. Mary, his oldest daughter, currently engaged to the Prince of Orange, was also taken along. But what of Elizabeth and Henry, the youngest children? They were left behind. A little girl of 7 and a baby of 2, left alone in London to the whims and mercy of men who hated their father. We don't know why Charles and Henrietta left these royal children, but whatever the case, it was certainly an inexcusable act. They cannot have truly loved them. What father and mother would do so cruel a thing? The royal runaways did not go far at first. They moved to Hampton Court, another one of the many palaces in England, a little less than a day's ride to the south of Whitehall Palace. Charles still did not feel safe here, however. Within 2 days they moved to Windsor Castle, a bit further away to the west. Here's a map of their journey. And actually, Hampton Court Palace and Windsor Castle still exist to this day as tourist sites. Whitehall Palace only partially exists though, sadly. This picture here shows the banqueting hall, which is the only part that hasn't been demolished yet. But back to our story. Parliament saw before them now either a golden opportunity or destruction. Just a few months before this, they had written up a bill, the Militia Ordinance, that would put them in full control of the army. If they didn't make the move now, who knew what Charles would do? He had already used the army against them when he came to arrest the 5 members, hadn't he? There was no question about it. They had to pass the bill. But they weren't ready to act alone, quite yet. That would be illegal. They followed the proper method and sent the bill to the runaway king, asking him for approval. Approval, of course, which was denied. This sham done away with, Parliament went ahead and passed the Militia Ordinance without the king's consent. This new bold move was pretty close to an act of war against the king. Indeed, Charles perceived it as such. He took even greater measures now for Henrietta's safety, and sent her and Mary away to the Netherlands. Convenient, is it not, how the Queen managed to escape the trouble which she herself had helped to cause? With the lady safely out of the way, it was time to get serious. The king galloped to the fortified town of Hull, home of a large arsenal. He had to grab it before Parliament did. Too late. Sir John Hotham, the military governor of this said town, was a Parliament man, and he was not unaware of the sudden turn of events in London. When the king arrived at the gates, Sir Hotham spoke to him from atop the wall. He assured the king that he was truly loyal to him, but explained that since he was also loyal to Parliament, he couldn't disobey their orders while he was under their command. He did, however, tell the king he could enter the town with 12 of his troops. The king countered this offer, demanding he must have 30 men as an escort. But this Sir Hotham could not allow. He knew there were many royalists within the town of Hull, and he was afraid they would rise up and turn on him if they saw the king with a force that large come riding through the streets. He said again that Charles must only come in with 12. This made Charles very angry. He shouted up to the other men of the city, telling them to throw the traitor Sir Hotham down off the walls. Thankfully for Sir Hotham, no one listened to Charles on this occasion either. The king stormed off in a fury. Fine. Parliament could have their own army. So would he. He sent messengers throughout the country, calling those nobles and gentlemen loyal to him to rally their tenants for war. Perhaps he thought that Hull was lost to him. But the war for the arsenal was not yet ended. You remember George Digby, that fuzzy hair guy who encouraged Charles to arrest the 5 members of Parliament? Well, it's here that this devious character makes his second appearance. You see, when the trouble he had started bore its fruit, he turned coward and ran away to the Netherlands with Henrietta Maria. Parliament had impeached him, and he was afraid of the consequences. He didn't stay long, though, and soon decided to rejoin the king. He disguised himself as a Frenchman. Okay, I guess that works. And boarded a ship bound for England. Unfortunately for the wily Digby, this ship was captured by another ship. A Parliament ship. His disguise served him well, however. He fell perfectly into his role of Frenchman, even pretending that he couldn't understand English, and the soldiers were easily convinced. He was still taken prisoner, though. And where should he be kept? But the town of Hull. It was to Sir Hotham that Digby at last revealed his true identity. Ever the wily snake, Digby tried to persuade the governor to hand Hull over to the king. Sir Hotham considered the nobleman's words. For weeks he had been trying to put down little royalist rebellions within the town, and he wasn't really all for Parliament himself. I will surrender the town, but only if the king will bring an army large enough to take it, he told Digby. That way, I won't look like a traitor to everyone else. He let Digby escape, and the young noble took the message to the king, who was now staying in York. Charles was thrilled. He gathered his troops and prepared to march to Hull.